I think that there's two things necessary for change. One is you have to be seeking it. So if you're here, you're seeking it. And then two, all you have to do is be able to access courage. If we can access courage, the courage to do it differently, and that might look like in the future, the courage to set a boundary, the courage to look in the mirror at yourself, the courage to have a hard conversation, the courage to leave a relationship, the courage to love yourself, to be kind to yourself. That's all we need. You need to be seeking change and be able to access courage.
Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it, and let's do it together.
Hello, and welcome back to Grow with Robin Breckenridge. And I'm so glad you're here for episode 2. In the last episode, I shared a little bit about my journey to becoming a life and relationship coach and why I'm so passionate about this work. But today, I wanted to dive into the heart of this podcast. The topics we'll cover, the mission driving it, and what you can look forward to. So this podcast is about growth, healing, and living a more conscious relational life. So what the heck does any of that mean? You'll get to know me throughout this podcast. I like to define everything, not for rigidity purposes, but for clarity, because this stuff can be super confusing. So the more clear it is, the easier it is to step into it. So what does conscious mean? Well, in my opinion, consciousness means being present in the moment and being able to align what you're thinking, feeling, and doing. Very often, that is not congruent when we are suffering in our life and relationships. And what does relational mean? So my favorite definition of relational means that you have the ability to pause and consider how your behavior is impacting yourself and others. Now, when we are in trauma responses, which just means that we're managing our feelings the same way we did when we experienced trauma when we were younger. And we can go into a lot of things around trauma, but just very briefly, some people think trauma is what we call the big T traumas, like the major things, these big things that happen to us. A lot of the time, what I'm cleaning up in my sessions is what I would call relational trauma, which means that you can definitely have those bigger T traumas or those big things. But for a lot of us, the trauma that we incurred in a relationship was woven into our relationships or love or care. And it's just something that maybe we're not even aware of, or that we would even call that something like trauma. But most of us have experienced on some level of emotional neglect, only because our parents were doing the best that they could at the time with the tools and awareness they had. And we have different tools and awarenesses now. So definitely it doesn't mean you had to have a bad childhood or identify, oh my gosh, I'm so traumatized. But for the most part, a lot of these concepts are going to resonate with most people. So this podcast is for anyone who wants to create change in their life and relationships or strengthen their relationships with themselves and the people around them. My mission in this podcast is to take big, transformative ideas and break them into bite-sized, actionable tools, which means that every episode, you will walk away with something to do, not just talking about these things, like how do you apply them in your life? So this is a space where you will feel supported, seen, and inspired to take the next step in your personal journey. So, what are we going to explore in this podcast? We're going to dive into healthy boundaries, what they are, why they're important, how to set them in ways that feel empowering. And I'm going to teach you guys the simplified system that I teach all of my clients that is truly worth its weight in gold. It's a very simple system that allows you to put everyone in your life into one of 5 categories based off emotional safety. And it's a super simple system that has for sure changed my life. I think that it's changed the lives of many people that have encountered it in this work. And you definitely want to tune into that episode. We're going to talk about attachment styles. I teach 4 attachment styles: anxious, avoidant, ambivalent, and secure. It's going to help you understand the energy that you're bringing to relationships, the patterns that you're bringing and how they influence your relationships, and what's working and what's not. And then most importantly is that it is possible, despite what you've gone through in your life and what you've been through, to have a secure attachment in your relationships. And that's something, again, that is a learned skill. And I'm going to provide you with a lot of tools to be able to step into that. We're going to talk about self-care and self-connection. So ways to connect with yourself, to care and build self-trust and internalize self-esteem through the way that you show up for yourself. And one of my favorite quotes is that self-esteem comes from doing esteemable actions. So we can look at that from a big picture, like, okay, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. But from the micro perspective, we are constantly giving ourselves data on whether or not we can trust ourselves, whether we're a safe space with ourselves. And then very simply put, like, being a doormat in your relationships or isolating in your relationships is not esteemable. It doesn't build self-esteem. So we're going to look at so many different ways that you can show up differently in your life to continue to build a healthy relationship to you and the people around you. And then one of my favorite topics is we're going to talk about building connections with parts of self. So identifying and establishing an inner child, an inner teenager, learning how to reparent and become the emotionally attuned parent that those parts of self did not get. And I can tell you that that work is profound. I mean, there's probably nothing that has impacted my life on a greater scale than learning how to be a safe, emotionally attuned parent for my wounded inner child. And also learning how to parent my teenager in ways that are helpful, because these parts of self are not all bad or all good. There's parts to them that we want to integrate and reintegrate back into our life. Like our inner child tends to be a place that we house our creativity and spontaneity and joy. And our teenager, for some of us, can be the place where maybe we have a little bit more spunk and spice, and that's where we can access our anger in a healthy way. And for some of us, we need to parent that teenager because they're running the show a lot in our life, and that's not working either. But what's so astonishing is the way that we managed and tolerated our feelings when we were younger is the way that we will manage and tolerate our feelings when we are adults. And if we're not conscious that that way of managing and tolerating the feeling has become maladaptive and it's no longer helping our life, then we just continue doing the same thing over and over again. And it definitely has an impact on our relationships. So some other topics that we're going to cover are emotional regulation, understanding that your feelings are not these things that you just need to get away from, that there's this communication system in your body and it never lies to you. Most of us don't know how to speak that language, and that feelings are really just a communication from your nervous system that there is a need. And when we don't when those feelings have been, something when we were younger that we were alone in and we didn't know how to manage the intensity of that feeling, then we just get out of it. And again, those things like numbing out or escaping become maladaptive as we're older. They create more disconnection in our life than connection. So we're going to talk about understanding what feelings are communicating, understanding how to manage those feelings, and then being able to create ways to manage and tolerate those feelings that don't hurt yourself and other people and create more connection in your life. So you can expect a mix of solo episodes where I'm teaching and imparting wisdom, guest interviews where we'll break down real life challenges and how to navigate them. And I'm going to bring on some incredible guests, all of which inspire me, and some of which have done this work and are going to come on and be able to share their experience of the work and how it's helped them now and how it's positively impacted their life. And some people maybe haven't necessarily worked with me, but they might be doing some amazing work out in the world or have some sort of insight that can help us become more conscious and relational in our life. I'm going to share tools and strategies that you can implement right away. So no fluff, just actionable insight. We're also going to have space for personal stories, listener questions, and deep conversations that leave you feeling seen and inspired. So think of this podcast as your weekly dose of encouragement, clarity, and connection. This isn't just about listening. It's about growing together and creating real change in your life and relationships, because we're in this together. So every episode, I will give you something tangible to take with you, whether it's a new perspective, a practice, or simply just feeling less alone. My goal is that this place will feel like you are a part of a community and creating a space where growth is celebrated and being human and having a human experience is embraced. So thank you again for being here and being open to explore these topics with me. I think that there's two things necessary for change. One is you have to be seeking it. So if you're here, you're seeking it. And then two, all you have to do is be able to access courage. If we can access courage, the courage to do it differently, and that might look like in the future, the courage to set a boundary, the courage to look in the mirror at yourself, the courage to have a hard conversation, the courage to leave a relationship, the courage to love yourself, to be kind to yourself. That's all we need. You need to be seeking change and be able to access courage. So if you got those two things, you're in the right place. So if you're excited about this journey, don't forget to subscribe because you're definitely not going to want to miss the future episodes. And please share this podcast with anybody that you think might benefit. Again, my dream in this life is that I can help impact positive change in as many people's lives as I can. So thank you so much for being a part of that and for sharing this with anybody that you think might benefit. And I'm going to get going and do my job to come on here every week, teach you something new, something actionable you can take into your week. And I cannot wait to see what comes from creating this amazing space. You're definitely going to want to tune in next week. I have the incredible actress and New York Times bestselling author, Minka Kelly. We are going to explore her journey of growth and transformation, and her story is so incredible. You're not going to want to miss it. It's so inspiring. I could not have imagined a more incredible first guest for my first podcast. So you're not going to want to miss this. Minka and I have an amazing relationship, and I can't wait to see what energy comes from putting both of our energies together on this podcast. So don't miss next week. And until then, take a moment for yourself this week because you matter and you are worth being a priority. And we are going to continue to grow together.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation, especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.